think you understand gravity because you've lived inside it your whole life. It's the oldest feeling you know. Before you could speak, you already knew what down was. So your brain treats gravity like common sense. And common sense is dangerous because it makes you stop looking. Let's start with a confession that sounds childish but cuts deep. When you say, gravity pulls me down, you're not describing what you feel. You're describing a story you were told. What you feel is pressure, compression, the floor pushing into your feet. Your bones are stacked like a loaded shelf. That sensation is not a pull, it's a push. And that small difference is where the whole misunderstanding begins. Stand still for a moment and notice the strange thing you never notice. You are not being left alone. The ground is actively doing something to you every second. It is stopping you. It is holding you up. It is pushing you away from where you would naturally go. The only reason you don't think that way is because you grew up calling that push normal. Now do the simplest mental test. Imagine the push disappears. Not the earth, not the so-called gravity, just the push. You step off a ledge, or you ride an elevator cable that fails, or you're inside a spacecraft with engines off. Suddenly you don't feel your weight. Your body doesn't feel pulled. It feels free, calm, floating, silent. And yet, if gravity is a pull that never stops, why does the feeling vanish the moment the pushing vanishes? That is the first crack. It tells you the sensation you call gravity is not gravity itself. It's what happens when something prevents your motion. Weight is what you feel when the universe is trying to move you one way and the floor refuses to let you. Snorts. That already sounds like the universe is playing word games. So let's make it harder to escape. If gravity is a pull like a hand, then you should be able to detect the hand by feeling it. But in the one situation where gravity is most active in the normal story, falling, you feel nothing at all. In free fall, the hand disappears. That is backwards. That is the opposite of how normal forces behave. A real push feels like a push. A real pull feels like a pull. Gravity doesn't. So here's the uncomfortable claim. If you want to understand gravity, you have to accept something that feels insulting at first. Falling is not a special state that needs a cause. Falling is the natural state. It's standing still that requires an explanation. You don't like that because you think standing still means doing nothing. But on Earth, standing still is not doing nothing. Standing still is being continuously forced off your natural path. That is why you feel pressure. That is why you feel weight. Not because something is grabbing you downward, but because something is shoving you upward and refusing to let you follow the path you would otherwise follow. If you want a picture without magic, use this one. Imagine you are on a moving walkway at the airport, but the walkway is trying to carry you forward. If you stand still relative to the building, you must push backward with your legs. Your body works. You feel effort. You feel force. Now step onto the walkway and stop resisting. The effort vanishes. You didn't turn off a force. You stopped fighting the motion that was already there. Gravity is like that, except the motion is not a belt you can see. It's built into the structure of space and time. Now let's talk about the moon, because it exposes the lie in the most dramatic way. The moon is falling toward Earth right now. It has been falling for a very long time, yet it never gets closer in the way your gut expects. It keeps circling, always falling, never landing. That is not how a simple pull behaves in your everyday life. A pull ends. A pull completes. A pull brings the thing in, but orbital pull creates an endless miss. It's like throwing a ball so perfectly that it falls forever and never hits the ground. Newton's genius was to notice that this weird, endless miss can still be described with a force law and inertia. The moon has sideways motion, so while it falls inward, it keeps missing. That description is powerful and it works. It predicts. It's why we can aim rockets and land probes on other worlds. But there's a hidden cost. It makes you imagine gravity as a rope across empty space. And once you imagine it as a rope, your brain asks a fair question. What is the rope made of? How does the rope know instantly what to do? What carries the message across vacuum? Newton himself disliked the idea of action at a distance with no mechanism you can point to. He accepted the law because it matched nature, but he didn't pretend the picture was satisfying. Then physics got even more rude. It revealed a fact that looks like a coincidence until you stare at it long enough. All objects fall the same way in a vacuum, a hammer and a feather, together, not almost, together. The heavy object is pulled harder, you can calculate that. But it also resists acceleration more, and it cancels perfectly. Why should two completely different ideas, how strongly you feel gravity and how stubborn you are to acceleration, match perfectly for every material? Wood, iron, plastic, water, everything. That perfect match is too clean to be an accident. Nature is not usually that kind. Einstein treated that perfect match like a clue, not a small one, a loud one. He asked a different question than Newton asked. Newton asked, "What is the force law?" Einstein asked, "Why do all objects fall the same?" And the moment you ask that, you're forced into a thought experiment that feels almost unfair. You are inside a closed room. No windows, no outside sounds. You feel weight. You drop a ball and it falls. You stand on a scale and it gives a number. Are you standing on Earth, or are you in deep space in a rocket that is accelerating upward at the same rate? Inside that room, you cannot tell. Not by any experiment. The behavior matches perfectly. That doesn't mean gravity is fake. It means gravity is special. It means gravity can be replaced locally by acceleration. And if that is true, then gravity is not acting like a normal force you can isolate from the rest of motion. It's tied to the very meaning of straight motion in the universe. Now here's the move that breaks people's brains because it flips the word force. In Einstein's picture, when you are in free fall, there is no force acting on you in the way you normally mean force. You are not being shoved. You are not being stretched. You are not being pushed by the floor. You are simply moving the way objects move when nothing is physically pushing on them. That's why you feel weightless. Your body is the detector. It reports no contact forces. So why does your path curve toward Earth? Because straight is not what you think it is. Straight is not a fixed idea written into the sky. Straight is defined by the geometry of space and time, and mass changes that geometry. This is where people panic and imagine a rubber sheet. Forget the rubber sheet. The rubber sheet is a cartoon that often cheats. It makes you think objects roll inward because something pulls them down onto the sheet, which is basically using gravity to explain gravity. That's a loop. It feels like understanding, but it's not. Use a cleaner picture. Use the Earth's surface itself. Two people start at the equator, side by side, walking straight north. Neither one turns toward the other. Each one feels like they are walking straight. Yet their paths meet at the North Pole. On a flat surface, straight lines don't meet. On a curved surface, they can. No pulling, no invisible rope. Geometry alone can bring paths together. Gravity, in Einstein's view, is like that, but deeper. It's not just space that can be curved. Time is involved too. The geometry is space-time, and in that geometry, the natural straightest routes, what physics calls free paths, can bend toward mass. Not because mass pulls like a hand, but because mass changes the rulebook that defines straightness. So the apple falling is not being yanked by an invisible grip. The apple is following the straightest path available in the curved space-time around Earth. The apple is doing the natural thing. You standing on the ground are the unnatural part. You are being forced off that natural path by the floor pushing up. That sounds like wordplay until you do a brutal little check. If you are standing on the ground and only the floor is pushing on you, then you should be accelerating, because a net push means acceleration. And you are. You are accelerating away from the free fall path you would otherwise follow. You call it standing still because you are not changing your position on the floor. But acceleration is about changes in motion through space-time, not about your comfort with the word still. This is why the scale reading is such a perfect trap. The scale does not measure a downward pull you can feel. It measures how hard it must push up to keep you from following your free path. Your weight is the price of resisting free fall. Now, if this geometry story is real, it must do something that Newton's pulling picture does not naturally expect. It must affect light. Not because light has weight, not because light can be grabbed, but because light also follows the straightest available paths, and if the geometry is curved, those paths bend. That's exactly what we see. Light passing near massive objects bends, making distant galaxies look stretched into arcs and rings. The universe becomes a hall of mirrors, not because space is full of invisible strings, but because the geometry itself is shaped by mass. This isn't a rare trick. We use it. We map invisible mass with it. We see gravity's fingerprints in the sky through lensing. And here's another place the competitor script is good, but could be clearer for students. People hear astronauts are weightless and assume gravity is gone. It isn't. Gravity a few hundred miles up is still strong. Astronauts float because everything is falling together. The station falls, the person falls, the tools fall. There is no floor pushing up with a constant shove, no contact force, no feeling of weight. Free fall feels like deep space because locally it is the same thing. That's not a slogan. That's the point. So the big idea is not gravity disappears in orbit. The big idea is free fall is the natural motion in curved space-time. Weight happens when you are prevented from free fall. That's the rule that unifies the scale, the apple, the moon, and the astronaut. Now let's make the story even clearer by taking it away from space for a moment. Imagine you're in a car that suddenly accelerates forward. Your body leans back. You feel pressed into the seat. You might say, something pulled me backward, but nothing pulled you backward. The seat pushed you forward, and your body resisted the change. The feeling is your body reacting to being forced off its natural motion. In gravity, the floor is the seat. The floor pushes up, your body resists. That sensation is weight. Once you accept that, the phrase, gravity is not a force, stops sounding like poetry and starts sounding like a practical statement. It means gravity is not a force in the sense that, in free fall, you don't need a force to make the motion happen. The motion happens because the geometry tells free paths how to run. Now we can go to extremes without changing the idea. Take a star. It's a huge amount of mass packed into one place. That mass shapes space-time strongly. Free paths lean inward. What keeps the star from collapsing is pressure pushing outward, created by heat and nuclear reactions. It's a tug of war, but notice the roles. Gravity is not a hand pulling. It's the inward shape of free paths. Pressure is the outward push. When the fuel runs out, pressure drops and the star collapses because there's nothing left to hold matter away from the inward running geometry. If the star is massive enough, collapse becomes extreme. Matter compresses into a neutron star, a city-sized object with insane density. And if even that can't hold, the geometry becomes so steep that all possible forward paths lead inward. That's what a black hole really means in plain language. It's not a vacuum cleaner in space. It's a region where the outward direction is no longer a direction your future can take. Even light, which always travels along the straightest available path, cannot find a path that leads out, because the geometry doesn't offer one. And now we loop back because this is the part that makes the entire story feel complete. The scale and the black hole are not separate topics. They are the same rule at different strength. The scale is your first personal meeting with curved space-time. A black hole is the rule, pushed to its limit. Now, one more important clarity point, because students often get stuck here. Newton's gravity is not stupid or useless. Newton's equations are one of the best tools ever built. They work extremely well for most situations. We still use them constantly because they are simpler and accurate enough in many cases. Einstein didn't delete Newton. Einstein explained what Newton's law was really measuring and why it looks like a force in normal life. Newton's picture is like treating Earth as flat when you're building a house. It's fine, it works, but if you try to fly around the world using a flat map, you'll eventually run into problems. Einstein's picture is the globe. It becomes necessary when you demand precision, when speeds are high, when gravity is strong, when time differences matter. And yes, time differences matter. Gravity changes time. Clocks tick differently depending on how deep they are in a gravitational field. That sounds unreal until you remember that GPS has to correct for relativity. That's not science fiction. That's your phone using physics that depends on time being part of gravity. So when you say gravity, you're not naming a pull. You're naming a relationship between mass, space, and time. You're naming the way the universe defines free motion. Now we return to the emotional punch, because this is where the viewer feels the shift. You have spent your whole life thinking standing still is normal and falling is what needs a cause. But in this deeper picture, falling is what you do when nothing is pushing on you. Standing still is what requires constant pushing. The ground is pushing you. The chair is pushing you. The bed is pushing you. You live inside a constant upward push that keeps you from doing what free objects do. And that is why gravity confuses people. They keep searching for the wrong sensation. They want to feel the pull. But the pull is not experienced as a pull. In free fall, it vanishes from your senses. On the ground, it shows up only as the push that prevents free fall. So the next time you step on a scale, don't let your brain finish the old sentence. Don't say, "This is Earth pulling me down." Say the more accurate, more unsettling thing. "This is how hard the scale must push up to stop me from following my free path." That number is a measure of resistance against the natural geometry. The next time you watch a pen fall, don't picture a hand dragging it. Picture a release. The pen is finally free to follow the route space-time offers. The next time you look at the moon, don't picture a rope around it. Picture a free path that loops because the geometry is curved. The moon is not fighting anything. It is moving naturally. You are the one being held back. And once you see gravity this way, the universe does start to look different, not because it becomes mystical, because it becomes cleaner. The story stops being mysterious pulls across emptiness and becomes free motion guided by geometry. Mass shapes the rulebook. The rulebook shapes the paths. And what you feel as weight is the floor's refusal to let you move the way the universe would let you move if it could. That's what gravity really is. Not a hand, not a rope, not a magical pull you can feel. It's the shape of the stage, and the stage tells everything how to move.